everyone. We are here on episode 2 of the Fabtastic 4. We're still working on the name.
Oh, God, I hope so.
We're discussing Jeff Lemire and a variety of his works. Right now we are featuring On the Overlay, Black Hammer, Descender, AD After Death, Moon Knight, Old Man Logan, Plutona, Superboy, Essex County, Sweet Tooth, and Underwater Welder. But we'll be talking about a variety of other titles. We're not just talking about those. Those are just the ones that I could fit on the overlay due to Jeff Lemire being an incredible writer and just prolific overall. So who wants to start? Who wants to discuss a little bit about Jeff Lemire's life?
Well, who do we have on the show today, host?
Oh, I mean, you should know who the Fab Four are. We have Brandon Clarkson, Wiccan Beyond, and Josh from the Discord community. And
Hello.
Also, Wiccan Beyond is one of our fantastic contributors on comicblackbook.com, and he's our top contributor.
That's exaggerating slightly, but hello.
Is that good enough of an introduction, sir?
I think that's good, yeah. It was a great introduction. I got goosebumps.
Yes.
Is this the screen you wanted? I know this is a little backroom talk, but is this the screen you wanted up?
That is the screen I wanted, thank you.
Okay. Just so you know that we're professionals here.
Okay, so take it, Wiccan.
I'm taking. Okay, so we just wanted to do just an incredibly brief bio on Jeff Lemire. He was born and raised in a small farming town in Essex County, Ontario, Canada, near Lake St. Clair, and he studied for a while in film school, but then decided to stop that and pursue comics because, by his own admission, he was rather antisocial. And that, in the briefest of nutshells, is an introduction to the man behind some of comics' more weirder and esoteric titles.
Well, I mean, just in his bio alone, you can see definitely where a lot of his inspiration comes from.
Yeah.
So, Brandon, what was the first Jeff Lemire book that you read?
The first Jeff Lemire book that I read was The Underwater Welder. And I just recently started reading comics when I picked that one up at the suggestion of a friend. And I didn't know that comics could make me feel that way. And it just, it's a very quick read. It's maybe 45 minutes long. It's sort of paced like a classic episode of The Twilight Zone, both in its, sort of pacing, but also just in its content. And by the end of it, I was just really touched by what he had to say. And I saw the themes that run through just about everything he's written. And I immediately after that gobbled up Essex County and everything else I could get my hands on. And each one sort of touched me in a different way. And each book has made me, really think about. I think that Jeff Lemire writes about the things that I think about, and that's why he speaks to me so much in his writing. The things that I think about often, unfortunately, are things like, death or loss and seclusion and family drama. And those are the things that he writes about. And so, every time I pick up a book, I know that it's going to make me empathize, and it's going to just make me think about or think deeply about these things that I already am trying to sort out on my own.
Oh, yeah. I think the first thing I read was Sweet Tooth, and I loved it. But I think the thing that really pulled me in the most was the next thing I think I read was maybe Essex County. And I can remember this one page where I definitely cried. I was just like, he pulled everything together. He makes you care about his characters. And a lot of the big emotional moments aren't in the dialogue necessarily, but it's just shown to you.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
So, Josh, who went first? Brandon, right?
Yes.
I think so.
Okay, so, Josh, what was your first Jeff Lemire book, or the one that stuck with you the most?
Well, the one that stuck with me the most, that really like made me love Jeff Lemire, would probably be Essex County, as I was mentioning.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. And now with Black Hammer, that's probably if it keeps going like it has been, it's probably gonna be one of my favorite comics.
Definitely.
Aside from like, I definitely, since you mentioned Black Hammer, I hold Black Hammer to like the tier of monstrous. In my opinion, in my humble individual opinion, I feel like Monstrous is the top comic book being printed right now, and Black Hammer is definitely a close second. It just took me by surprise by just the breathtaking art, the lovable characters. I mean, who knew that I was going to end up loving a gay Martian that is into humans? You know, and that's just so bizarre to me. Like, definitely the character of Barbie like took me by surprise, and then his like relationship with Golden Gale is just another thing that I love, and just the way he writes his characters and brings them together, and the conflict that he puts them through are just incredible. Anybody have any opinion on Black Hammer?
Oh yeah, I mean, I love he's taking things that he loves, like small towns, and mixing it with superheroes, which is another thing he obviously loves, and it's great. You have all of these classic superhero archetypes.
Yeah.
And he's just doing his own original, telling his own story with them, and I think it's really successful because you're taking, the things that made Essex County, Underwater Welder, and even like his newest book, Roughneck. It's taken the relationships and and the characters' past, and really fleshing out these characters and making you care about them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And I think, the thing, I can't think of any other writer at the moment that has such a recognizable style and such a recognizable, as far as the topics that they write about and the settings and the types of characters they choose to write.
Right.
Other than Jeff Lemire, I mean, it's a very known and unapologetic style, but at the same time, it's pretty amazing that he still surprises me. And Black Hammer was one of those biggest surprises. I mean, I remember a few years ago when he put out an annual for Bloodshot Reborn, and there was a little story in there where he basically takes the Valiant universe and he writes a satire of Crisis on Infinite Earths. And I remember that being the first time that I was thinking, wow, this guy actually has a really good knack for like commenting on the superhero genre. And then immediately after that, he came out with Plutona, where it does something very similar.
Right.
And I could just see there him sort of going down this new path of exploration where he's like, he's deciding that now he wants to start writing comics that reflect on, the history of comics. And I think that was culminated in Black Hammer, which is hands down my favorite book at the moment and going to be my favorite book of the year. I think it's, I don't know if it's my favorite yet, but I think it's bar none the best thing he's written. And to do that in just, gosh, I mean, how many issues has it been? Like less than 10? It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah. If I'm going to jump in for a moment, like, and going back to like my first exposure to Jeff Lemire, like as primarily like a big DC guy, my first exposure to him was Superboy. He wrote that title, issue 1 through 11. It was one of the titles that we lost with the New 52. And sorry, I'm going to jab that knife in there. And it's also kind of it's also the book that kind of awakened me to like, oh, this is a guy that I want to follow. And one of the things that he does is that, before Connor was primarily, he'd been on the Teen Titans a lot, but Jeff Lemire like brings him back to Smallville and really like refocuses on fleshing out Smallville, giving it a history, giving him friends that like aren't super people, which is nice to see. He's given see, the character is like Simon Valentine, who's like this kid mad scientist. And I was just kind of flipping through it again today, and what we were talking about, how he's really good at these like smaller character moments, even though he's dealing with these larger than life characters. Like there was a scene where like Simon figures out really early on that Connor Kent and Superboy are one and the same. And there's this scene where, like, obviously Simon's, really excited to have this information, and, like, he gets to try all his weird science experiments and, like, to kind of help Connor in his Superboy adventures. And it gets to the point where, like he's, he's talking loudly about it at school, and, like, Connor's got to pull him aside and go, like, hey, listen, here's the deal. Like, you got to pick. You can be Superboy's friend or you can be Connor's friend. And because he's all like, because if people figure out that I'm one and the same, like, you're in danger. So, like, you got to pick. And it becomes a really sad scene because, like, Simon goes like, well, you're my only friend here. Like, who am I going to talk to? And he's like, that's kind of the price. Like, and so he's able to like have those really like human moments that are really good. And then his whole relationship with Lori Luthor, which is bananas. Like I don't know. Are you guys familiar with like Connor's like genetic makeup?
No.
I don't know much about it.
He's a clone of Superman, obviously. But Cadmus couldn't stabilize the Kryptonian genetic material, so they supplemented it with human DNA, and they used Lex Luthor.
Uh-oh.
And so
Okay.
he's kind of the clone of Superman and Lex Luthor, which subtext, like, but
Worst gay couple ever.
But it's he has this moment where he's having this conversation with Lori Luthor because they're starting to have feelings for each other, and he has to go like, "Hey, listen, there's probably something about me that you need to know." Like, she's like, "We're kind of cousins," like, and it's just, yeah. So I would say that's my first big exposure that I had to Jeff Lemire, but. And then, like, I read Sweet Tooth. But the one that really hit me, I think, in an emotional way that I wasn't expecting, was Descender. I just think I kind of related to Tim 21 in a way that I wasn't expecting. Like, it's a story about, like, an abandoned robot boy. But one of the themes that constantly shows up in Lemire's work is that is kind of estrangement from family and also environmental isolation, and so, like, the fact that, like, all Tim wants to do really is be reunited with Andy and kind of be the brothers they used to be, and, like, that's not who Andy is anymore. And, like, he's a robot hunter, and which it's going to be interesting to see like how like because we still don't know a lot of Andy's like history of like how he got to that point. I mean, so I don't know, like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I mean, like it just stuck in my head that 1021's a lot like Gus and Sweet Tooth, that they're kind of these both innocent type characters who are thrown into a world that they don't know, they have no reference for.
Yeah.
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 Definitely.
Yeah. In my reread of Sweet Tooth, I'd kind of known that obviously he was raised very sheltered, and he had that kind of quasi dogmatic worldview that was like they're bad men and they're good people and we got to stay in our good little private world. Yeah. But Gus was an interesting character because, I mean, like I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't finished yet, but but I was really that story became something like I kind of like there's a part of me that would like love to like sit in on like Jeff Lemire's therapy sessions because I'm assuming he has them because like and also just what he thinks about like religion because a lot of his books kind of particularly Sweet Tooth like plays with it and there's even an implication in Sweet Tooth that there are these kind of animalistic deities that are real. And so
well, I feel like something that comes up in his books a lot is characters having their ideals challenged, or their beliefs challenged. I mean, I feel like Jeff Lemire was, from all he's done, he was made to write Old Man Logan.
Yeah.
He, old gritty men. That's like what Jeff Lemire's about. And in Sweet Tooth and Descender, you have these big moments where the characters are put to the test on what you've known of them so far and what their beliefs are.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to be spoilery, but
well,
it's interesting that comes up a lot.
One of the heartbreaking things about Sweet Tooth that just kept happening is that it was it Jeopard? Yeah, Jeopard was the old man.
Yes.
That like all of his cynicism kept on being proven right. Like it's like truly like the only good thing left in that world were like the hybrids. Like that humanity really was a lost cause. And so even just like the small kindness, like even like in the final issue, like there's scenes in the opening pages where it's like humanity's definitely on the way out and they're thinking like, oh, like maybe we can these two guys, they'll be nice. And yet again, it's like it's just yeah, I guess that kind of stuck with me because it's like, and he tricked me a couple times, like because I kept on going like, yeah, like no, this time it'll be okay, like Jeopard's like he's gonna be wrong about this, but then like he ends up being right, like
yeah, I do feel like though you do have these characters in books that have hope.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Have any of y'all read Roughneck?
Yeah. Not yet.
No.
Well, I won't go too much into it, but you have these characters, who have a pretty rough past, and I feel throughout the book there isn't much hope, but then I feel like at the end you get this moment of hope that's really nice that I feel like really makes a strong arc for the characters.
Yeah, and Are you? Did you want to say anything else about Descender, Sweet Tooth, or Superboy?
Um, I mean, I definitely say like if people haven't read it, like if they like Jeff Lemire's work, then like go back and find that Superboy collection. Like it's literally the whole thing is in one graphic novel, and
Did it have a even though it was cut off prematurely? Was Lemire able to write some semblance of an ending?
yes, yeah, all the silver lining of the New 52 is that all the books were able to have like a natural ending, and so like you got glimpses of what he might have done if he had a longer stay on the character, but
Right.
like it did come to a natural conclusion. Yeah, no, that one was just really fun. Like it's just it's it's great that he's also able to bring his own brand of weirdness, like even to someone as iconic as Superboy, to where like he'll take something uh like the Parasite, right, the Superman villain, and he'll have like Simon Valentine go like, oh, I'm just gonna sneak a skin sample off the Parasite, and I'm gonna make these frogs that have parasite powers. Like it's just a lot of fun stuff like that.
Anything else?
No, no.
Not on those titles.
I think that I think I'm up next, and I'll just run very quickly on the one title that I do want to talk about, which is Plutona. I believe that was my first Jeff Lemire book. I could be wrong. I think that I read it because of Kirk. Captain Kirk from the Comic Book Girl 19 YouTube channel and Your Mom's Basement with Savannah and I. I really enjoyed Plutona because it dealt with a theme that I'm incredibly interested in, which is the corruption of how power corrupts. And this book kind of took it in a way that took me by surprise, which is how power corrupts even at the youngest level, children. Because this story essentially is kind of like a Stand By Me type story where a group of kids find a body which belongs to a superhero, Plutona, and every young kid has its own little story, backstory and things like that, but eventually it comes down to the downward spiral of one of the kids who's eventually corrupted by having the body of a superhero, and it gets pretty dark. Like it gets really dark for a book that deals with children, and because eventually it kind of some of the kids end up kind of trying to give themselves power with the body's DNA, and I'm not going to go into more detail than that, but I really liked how it explored the idea that power corrupts no matter what, even if you're an adult, if you're a child, it always corrupts, it always consumes. So that's what I took away from Plutona, and I really enjoyed it. What do you guys think? Did you guys read it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think like talking about how the story gets kind of dark. I think it's a really interesting contrast of Emmy Lennox's art, which isn't necessarily that. You wouldn't necessarily think Amy Lennox this dark of a story, but I think it's a really cool contrast.
I also like the backup stories in that series where he wrote and drew, sort of, I guess, I don't want to say prequel, but like he wrote and drew the events that led up to the beginning of the book.
Yeah.
And he wrote them, the scripts he wrote for those backups are very harkening back and written in a style of mid-20th century comic writing. And, you saw his ability to do that in that book first, which, would eventually become some of the writings he's done for Black Mirror, especially the flashback issues of Black Mirror. And so, like, even then, like, I think he was really showing his interest in writing comics about comics. And and too, like the ending of Plutona really stands out to me among his other work. Like, I mean, Lemire's work is extremely depressing in a lot of ways, but like, he usually is not like other writers where he will leave an ending sort of abruptly or open ended, or some people might interpret it as not having finality. But if there is one that he's done it that way, I think it'd be Plutona. I mean, it definitely ends uniquely compared to how he ends his other works.
Yeah. One of the things about Plutona is, as much as it's about the conceit of finding this supposedly dead superhero, is really just that the kids are already kind of crappy when you meet them. Like, I'm gonna be terrible with all their names, unfortunately. Like, I'm trying to cheat and go like, okay, is there an article where I can just find their names real quickly? But you've got like the brother and sister that it's already like she's tired of the older sister's. I think her name is Mai. She is like already tired of looking after her younger brother, and like she's going like, no, he can take care of himself. He's fine. But then she's got her friendship with what's her name? The girl. I want to be delicate. Like, I really wish I had her name in front of me, but there is I guess I will say like a heavyset girl in the group, in the circle of kids, and like her story of just like how she used to be like close friends with Mai, but then like now suddenly like like as people get older they're starting to grow apart. There's just all the like, I guess like I kept thinking of like there's a casual cruelness to all the characters that, and he explores obviously that like the one that's supposedly like kind of like like has is kind of on the surface is like a bully and like wearing the leather jacket and everything. It's like he's got a parent that's always intoxicated and like always has the TV blaring and doesn't have much of a home life. And so no, like Plutona in that sense, like I really did. I like the exploration of he's able to write children in a way where they actually behave like children. Like, he doesn't idealize it. Like, he's very much like Stephen King. Like, it's and it's appropriate that story is obviously inspired by The Body, and so he writes kids as they are. Like, like they curse, they joke about masturbation. Like, there's like just an authenticity there that not a lot of writers can get when writing kids.
Yeah, I think some of that credit would go to Emmy Lennox too. Like, she draws the kids really well. I mean, I think I've heard this complaint before, is like some people cannot draw kids or teenagers.
Right.
I think she does a really good job with that.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember reading it when it was coming out and just thinking that nobody else was capturing the way kids talk better than this book. And I think that that your comment about a casual cruelness about it, I think is just it. I think that's a huge part of why it felt so different and much more authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Jeff Lemire, he can write cruel. He definitely knows how to write cruel characters, and he definitely knows how to break your heart.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, like, I mean, like this is kind of going backwards a little bit, but like I think that so much about his comics are just how people that maybe he's known in his life, or the types of people that everybody knows, how they sort of respond to grief in some way. And sometimes the response is bad, and sometimes the response is good. And I feel like as I was reading through some of this stuff in preparation for this, I was really starting to be reminded about how many of the stories actually actively deal with death, and characters, interact, or sort of coming to some sort of a contract with the idea of death. And it's sort of, even though I'm not a big fan of Snyder's script in After Death, I think that's probably what drew Lemire to the project, is the idea of a story that's all about death, or this, in that case, curing it. And so I think that Essex County. I mean, this is not a spoiler because it's first issue, but in Sweet Tooth, first issue is Gus coming to grips with his father essentially leaving him forever.
Yeah.
And Underwater Welder is all about dealing with the death of a father.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, if I read Lemire's canon, I would bet money that his father, had passed away in some way that really traumatized him. Because I don't know. I mean, that's, again, I don't know how accurate it is. His father may even be alive. I'm not sure, but just you get the sense that this is somebody who finds some sort of therapy with writing about people responding to death, especially death in family. And I get a lot of therapy out of reading it. And my second favorite series at the moment is Royal City, which I think is him, again, starting to fire on all cylinders about this particular topic in a way that's really kind of brilliant. I mean, Royal City, for people who haven't read it, is a story about a small boy in this family who passes away. And now it's many years later, and every family member is continuing to hallucinate this boy, but they're hallucinating him as their sort of idealized vision of what he would become.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely, it's really unique. I'd never heard of that. It's clever, but it also is so Jeff Lemire, because it's so much of what he writes about in every single one of his stories is not just death, but also people dealing with death, and people sort of lying to themselves about what that death meant to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I feel like I read this about Royal City, was that more recently Jeff Lemire has started coloring all of his books. I could be mistaken, but I think that's true. But it's really interesting to see the use of color in Royal City. It's very kind of reminds me of Roughneck as well. Like, I mean, there's a lot of like monochromatic things going on with just little splashes of color.
I have noticed a significant change in the coloring of his art, starting with like Royal City and Roughneck, and I like it a lot. I think I like it even better than some of his past coloring.
Yeah, I mean, come on, Royal City. He drew a panel from the perspective of a toilet. Who else is doing that right now?
That's so true.
I mean, no one else is doing that right now.
Yeah, I was hesitant to share much about Royal City because we are only it's only on issue 3, but
like his art is just so haunting. Waken right now is kind of scrolling through the art on Royal City, and I just cannot believe that this guy writes, draws, and colors his own stuff. It's insane.
Yeah, it's insane. And I think that, like, I mean, his style is obviously very unique, and the way he draws people is, now it's definitely sharpened over the years. But you look at his early stuff like Lost Dogs in Essex County, and his people don't look like people, but and so like, but it totally fits because it's almost like he wants no. His characters are romantic in the sort of the philosophical sense, but he doesn't want any romance in the way he draws them. and there's really
Yeah.
not any pretty people in his books
No.
ever.
Oh no, like
And nobody's good looking, nobody's attractive, and it's I'm not sure.
It's very
Exactly.
real.
Yeah, yeah.
well,
And so it's like,
not even in that, because like in Sweet Tooth, like, you know, Jeopard's wife, Louise, like, you're supposed to think that, like, she's like, you know, she walks on the sun, like she's this like platonic ideal of a woman, and then like you flip the page to like the full panel shot of her, it's like, oh, all right, like
She don't look too good.
no. but that is his style. Like it's yeah. There's no pretty people. But
Well, and,
I was
one
gonna
thing,
say,
just a quick thing to say, like one thing I love too is that, you know, a lot of his stories are about love, but they're about sort of platonic love and like family love. And I think one of the most unique books he's done is Trillium, which is just straight up romance love. And I'm just a sucker for that stuff. And so I just wanted to do a shout out to that book, because that book is beautiful and it makes me cry every time. And that, I think, is just him unleashing and doing a full on romance, you know, story. And it absolutely working and landing.
Rhaegar.
Ian's just yelling at his
Sorry.
cat.
Sorry, he's driving me crazy right now. He's acting incredibly needy.
But to go back to, I wanted to like pick your guys, because I haven't, no one in my life, except for Ian, obviously, is reading Royal City. But we don't always talk about comics together because it can get pretty heated. So one of the things that I wanted to get your guys' takes. Do you guys get the sense that like Patrick is now finally seeing, is it Tommy? Yeah, Tommy. Do you think he's finally seeing Tommy again now that he's back in Royal City?
Patrick's the writer.
Yeah, Patrick's the writer. Yeah.
I haven't read the third issue, so I don't know.
No, neither have I. I've just read the first two.
Gotcha.
Oh, that's interesting. Like maybe Tommy is only in Royal City, or I don't know.
I guess like a twist that could happen would be if it's revealed that he saw him even before he came back home.
Yeah.
Because right now we're not sure if anybody still sees Tommy after they leave, because nobody's left except for him.
Right. Like I was just kind of curious, because it seems like I said, I think you're right in saying all the other family members are kind of seeing him as their, like, not just their ideal version, but also like the version of Tommy that justifies their behavior, right? So
Exactly, yeah.
Like if you look at the brother who's dealing with like the drug addiction and the drinking, his version of Tommy is like feeding into that. And then
oh yeah, I mean, just to bring up the toilet scene again, you have the brother. It's a panel of the brother. I can't remember his name. But he's basically getting his head stuck in a toilet, and you see this image of Tommy, like he's holding his hands up, like, "What are you doing, man? What are you doing?"
Yeah, and yeah, it's one of those things where the reason why I had the question about you know what Patrick is experiencing, because it's like it seems like everyone's version of Tommy, like in the family, is not the version of Tommy, like obviously like when he died, but that's what Patrick sees. Like he sees like a Tommy that's underwater.
And two, like, you know, I don't know how deep he's going to go, but just like, again, I think it might even be an assumption that Patrick's view is the correct one.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it could be that Patrick is somehow masking some big truth about his brother that he, just like every other family member, is unable to deal with.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it could be yet, but I think it's possible.
Yeah. Or it's him coming back to Royal City. It's now he's finally addressing his pain, maybe in a way that he never has before. And
sure.
We'll see his Tommy change, like, the longer he's there, but who knows?
Well, you could definitely see something like, his with his writing. Well, y'all haven't read the newest issue, right?
No.
I haven't read issue 3 yet, no.
Well, just like using he's writing this new book and coming back to Royal City, where I think it was in the last issue, there's kind of this interesting reveal about his writing that I won't say right here, but it kind of feels like it ties into what y'all are talking about.
Okay.
Spoil it.
I'm not spoiling it.
Do it.
I don't care. You can do it if you want to. If you think it adds to discussions.
I'm just the troll. Don't listen to me.
It has to do with more toilet scenes. That's what it is.
Oh.
Larry Craig, what are you doing here?
I wouldn't expect any less. Larry Craig. Oh my god. Oh my god.
One thing I did want to mention about Royal City is like I said before, like Jeff Lemire, even though he has, I think more so than any other writer, like a really grounded, like foundation that he brings to every book, he still continues to surprise me. And I was so surprised in issue 2 of Royal City when, I mean, I don't think this is a literal of him creating an extended universe, but I think it's more of a callback than anything. But it was just something I'd never seen him do, where in the second issue of Royal City, Patrick calls his wife, who is an actress on the film set, and the film she's filming is totally Trillium.
Really?
And, yeah, go back and look at it. It's she's dressed up as the main character from Trillium, and the extras on set are characters from Trillium as well. And so, like, if you want to read fully into it, you can say that Jeff Lemire wants Trillium to be a fictional movie in the Royal City universe, or you could read it as an homage to another work he's done.
Oh, wow.
But either way, it's something I've never seen him do before. I've never seen him be self-referential in that way, and I just thought it was so interesting and so neat to have a total several-page Trillium shout-out in that book.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the chat, and Hulk Ho Quinn is talking about, this being a monthly book and waiting for the trade. What are your thoughts about, a story like this, which is similar to his Essex County, his Underwater Welder, and even Roughneck? What do you think he's getting out of making this a monthly book?
I don't necessarily know if he's getting anything out of it. I think like Jeff Lemire's style, especially when he's in charge of the art and the writing, like his style is more fit towards graphic novel form. So I could understand why a title of his being released monthly could be a little bit conflicting to the reader, because at the end of the day, in my opinion, his style is better served as a graphic novel form than a monthly title. What do you guys think about that?
Well,
I think I'd probably agree with that, but I think a lot of writers are that way now.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think because the market is now, just in general, it's the reality is people buy more in trades than they do like the floppies, like, because the graphic novels are also in bookstores as opposed to just comic shops, and so, I mean, personally, I think trade waiting hurts creator-owned titles. So I think that, I agree. If anything, buy your creator-owned stuff monthly. But yeah, like I've noticed, maybe even unintentionally, like I still am buying, like, Jeff Lemire, like I'm buying the monthly issues because he's a writer I follow, obviously. But like I'll wait until I have like a stack of like maybe 3 or 4 issues before like I read them.
Yeah, I feel like depending on the book, for me, it changes. Like for Descender, the pacing is it, it's a little slower than some other books, and I feel like I like reading that in a big stack.
Yeah.
But compared to Black Hammer, like Black Hammer, I want to read it first thing, like when it comes out.
Yeah.
And like one thing I do, like that is a struggle that I have in my head all the time. It's like do I want to wait for this, for Title X, or do I not want to wait for Title X? But like with something like World City, I'm just so like I think World City is the quintessential Jeff Lemire book. Even if it's not his best, I think it's the most indicative of his style, his subject matter, and his sensibility. And so I just get a joy every month, like just knowing that there is a full on turned up to 11 Jeff Lemire book coming out every month. Black Lemire is totally something different. Moon Knight's totally something different. Old Man Logan's, in a lot of ways very different, but like World City is like straight up, Essex County, but on a monthly basis. And I still get giddy about that. Just like, being able to pick up a Jeff Lemire book that's all Jeff Lemire indie title, once a month. I don't know. I just I like that I have Roughneck. I get my graphic novel fix, but I also like that he's giving me something on a monthly basis. Maybe that he could have reserved for a graphic novel, but chose not to.
Yeah, and the great thing is like Royal City. Like I listened to an interview with him. It's been a couple months now, but he said that Royal City is like it's gonna be his playpen. Like he's got the idea that it could be, a 300 issue series that like in 8-10 years we'll still be reading Royal City. Like.
Also, I think he adds on new projects because he's a masochist, and I don't get how he churns out so much quality stuff. To do like 7 or 8 titles at one time and not have a single one dip in quality, I just don't get it. He works better than anybody else in the industry right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an interesting. He has a blog post about his writing process that, for people who are interested, it's really interesting to check out. I think it's on his blog spot or something.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely want to check that out. Well, we do know that his workload, at least on the corporate side, has lightened up quite a bit because his projects at Marvel have come to an end.
Who wants to talk about that and their theories as to why Jeff Lemire left Marvel?
I'm going to let that conversation go to others more qualified than myself. But I do want to spend like 3 sentences talking about how incredible Moon Knight is, which is my 3rd favorite book at the moment.
Which one? Oh, Moon Knight?
Moon Knight, yeah.
Big Rob is probably dying right now.
It's so good. It is. It's Jeff Lemire being Jeff Lemire, but he's tackling mental illness. And he does it with such... talking about mental illness in a superhero cape, book where people are punching each other could get really tone deaf really quickly, and it totally doesn't. He has such a respect and such a just a deep, I don't even know how to put it, just a really deep love for characters who are struggling, and for him to do a book like this, I think nobody else could have done it like him. But also, I'm just so happy to see it on the stands. I can't believe that it sells as little as it does. But I think it's the best Marvel book right now, and it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I can definitely say I was a little worried when I saw the first cover of Moon Knight in a straitjacket, and
you're like, not again.
But I do trust Jeff Lemire, and I've only read the first volume, but I like how he's taking the idea. So many writers have said different things about Moon Knight's background and where he comes from, that I like Jeff Lemire's taking those ideas and doing his own thing with it.
Yeah.
I've liked it so far. I need to catch up. I've only read the first volume.
Yeah, there is a issue coming up that I'm jealous that you'll get to read it for the first time, but it's a flashback issue that deals with his childhood and about the first time that Mark Spector meets Steve Grant, and
Yeah.
and it's really great because it also it reminds you that in addition to Ben Grimm that Moon Knight is one of the prominent Jewish characters that Marvel has, and that issue does a good job of reminding you of that, and it's kind of a heartbreaking scene because it's we see he's like I think he's like walking home from school, or he's just heading home from somewhere, and this kid who looks kind of like him shows up and goes like, "Hey, my name's Steve. We should be friends and hang out." And he's taking him on a tour of his bedroom, and like, "Oh, you like this too?" And it's like there's such glee, and then his dad walks into the room and he's all like, "Hey, so who are you talking to?" And he's like, "Oh, my buddy Steve." And just the look of horror on his dad's face of "Oh no, something is very wrong."
That issue was just devastating. It's one of my favorite issues I read all year.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows how to pack a punch. He really does.
I think Jeff Lemire's broke my heart more than people I've been in relationships with. Oh man!
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say this doesn't have anything to do with Lemire, but for my money, Moon Knight has the best art of any book on the stands right now.
Oh yeah.
In my opinion, just no contest. I mean, especially the second arc when they're switching between Greg Smallwood and Franchiavelli and what's his face? What's his name? Torres, is that his name? No. Torres. Yeah, Torres. So it's like Jeff Stocco, Franchiavelli, Torres, Greg Smallwood, and it's every other page is switching to a different artist, and they're all great AAA artists, and it's just mind blowing how good the art in that book is.
Yeah.
Yeah, something we don't have to talk about it right now, but something we should talk about in a little bit is the artist he chooses to work with when he's not drawing, because I think he works with some really great artists.
I agree.
So, let's stick on the Marvel train. What other anybody else reading Old Man Logan?
I am.
I'm reading Old Man Logan. Yeah,
I've read the first two volumes, and I really love how he is giving more background into this character. And as I mentioned before, I feel like he's perfect to write this character. And speaking of artists, Sorrentino, oh my gosh, he does some great stuff in this book.
Yeah. Yeah, he does.
And they worked together before on Green Arrow, and I have to admit that my plan was to read Green Arrow before we did this pod, but it was during that time that I wasn't reading DC books, so it's and then that hardcover collection was oh, it's a little too expensive right now, but yeah, I actually think that him and Sorrentino are born to work together. The way that his art complements Lemire's writing, particularly on that title. Now, I haven't read the original Old Man Logan. Did either of you guys?
Yes.
Yes.
So, is he really fleshing out the character of Logan's wife? Did we not get a lot of time with her in the original graphic novel?
I mean, he's not really fleshing her out in this series. There's a little bit more mention of her, but I don't. He's not really. Well, this brings me to an issue that I actually wanted to talk about since you mentioned him leaving Marvel and stuff. I do think that he's born to write a Wolverine, particularly an older Wolverine. Wolverine's my favorite Marvel character, and the idea of Lemire writing him is amazing to me. However, I do have to say, like, one criticism I have for the book is that I think the book would have been so much stronger if Lemire was just writing Logan. Not a sequel to Mark Millar's Old Man Logan. I think that really tied his hands. And a lot of his Marvel books, with a few exceptions, feel like his hands are being tied and he's not able to do everything he wants. And, I originally started reading Jeff Lemire's Old Man Logan without reading Mark Millar's version or Mark Millar's original story first. And I was just completely lost because he's constantly having, he has to create a sequel to that. So he's constantly having to connect the stories. And so you kind of have to read Mark Millar's version or Mark Millar's first part of the story first, to understand what Lemire's doing. And I feel like in a lot of ways, maybe that's what he wanted to do. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into my dislike of Marvel editorial right now. But it seems like he would be doing so much better if he was just writing a story about Wolverine, being older and disgruntled, as opposed to having to write a sequel to somebody else's work in which Wolverine is from another dimension and does not belong in this world. It just adds a level. I don't know. I think that many of my problems with that book are down to that, and I think it could have been a much stronger book if he had just been put on Wolverine. But maybe some people disagree. I don't know. I just feel like that book just has a little bit of handicap in that regard.
No, it makes sense because I feel like at the end of the day, Jeff Lemire is kind of like the epitome of like an indie writer, and you cannot put a writer like that and try to fit him into a box like you do in stories like in the Big Two. It would have been cool to, give him the character and say, do what you want with it. But unfortunately, when you're dealing with the Big Two, that's not always the case.
Well, when you compare Old Man Logan to, like, Extraordinary X-Men, like, it's pretty obvious that he has much more freedom on Old Man Logan.
Yeah.
And now I come at this from a different perspective. I come at this from the perspective that the greatest Wolverine ever is Laura Kinney. And like Wolverine, Logan has never really like grabbed me as a character, and like we all lived through the 90s, it was a hard time. But so like Bendis's Old Man Logan was like, that's the first Old Man Logan I read, like during Secret War, and so I was kind of already on board with the premise for Old Man Logan because it's like this Mad Max version of Logan that's like just plopped into the main universe, and there is something like, I mean, it fits with like the tragedy of Wolverine where he's like, I need to prevent my future from coming true, but yet everyone in the book is going like, yeah, but like Jean Grey's around, like this is clearly not your world.
Right.
Do you guys have anything else to say on Old Man Logan, or?
Well, I guess I just wonder where with, but for me, I felt like, I was getting these connections to the original story. Like I thought it was fleshing out a little bit, but I can see, Brandon, what you're saying, that, it maybe it's, holding the story back in some ways, and the fact that he has to mention these things or he has to hit on these points.
And to be fair, like right now I'm literally only pulling 3 Marvel books, and one of them's Old Man Logan, right? So it's like, even though I have some problems with it, I still love it, and it's still one of the best things Marvel's putting out at the moment. And I think it's one of the best superhero things Lemire's done. So I still love the book. I just think that I can't help but think that maybe it could have been something different if he wasn't sort of fleshing out somebody else's story.
Okay, so he really is adding more to what Mark Millar did. Like, he's really realizing
so.
that version more. Okay.
Especially in the last 2 arcs.
Okay. Like,
because the arc that he's writing now, that's actually going to end next week, directly deals with him trying to bring closure to Hulk Baby.
Yeah, and
Maybe.
I will say the past live arc is like the first time where it's all like, this feels a little rushed. Like, it's moving very quickly, and so like I wonder if his original plan got truncated. Like, almost like what if it's his Batgirl? Like there was a Brian Q. Miller did a run on Batgirl, and you could tell in the final issue that like he gave you like a glimpse of all the stories that he was gonna tell, and they were all just single page stories. And it's like, so it kind of feels like that. It feels like, oh, like he's rushing to the finish line.
Yeah.
I wonder, thinking about rushing the finish line, like, I wonder what his ideas were for his X-Men book. Because, I mean, it wasn't a very long run. And
which X-Men book are you talking about?
Extraordinary?
Extraordinary X-Men. And then we got thrown into, what was it first? Inhumans?
Well, I mean,
X-Men,
since we're talking about that, I don't know how far you wanted to get into the whole X-Men discussion, because he was involved initially with Death of X, that essentially went on to being Extraordinary X-Men, and then that moved on to Inhumans versus X-Men. And that time in my life was really rough for me, because at the time we didn't really know much about the future of the X-Men. We didn't know if they were going to be replaced with the Inhumans. There was just a lot of things up in the air, and I wasn't trying to react. I was trying to act, and I was going to keep a really close eye on everything that was going on with them at the time. But what did you guys read any of those 3 titles? Did you guys? I think like if it wasn't for Soul and Lemire, I wouldn't have gotten through that debacle like I did.
I finally read Death of X.
How did that measure up to your expectations?
It kind of broke my heart a little bit. Like,
did it?
Like,
there he goes again, breaking hearts left and right.
Well, no, because I'm probably like one of the few people, like, maybe I'm not, maybe I'm overstating, but like I really like Cyclops. Like, he's always been one of like my favorite X-Men. Like, he's the Steve Rogers of the X-Men. Like, and just how, particularly nowadays. Hey, but just the way so everyone here has read it, right? So like they obviously know that he died. But
I think it's
been the revelation of like how
I guess the spoiler is how he died.
Yeah, the spoiler is how he died. Yeah, like that when you find out that like he just had just kind of a basic sudden death. Like he had for a comic book character, like it was like he got sick and died. Like it was very like, oh, he didn't have the big, like final showdown moment.
But he kind of did in an offhanded way, if you guys remember.
Well, no, obviously, but that was a fake. That was an illusion.
Yeah.
Like, that's the point. Mm-hmm. His true death was just sad. Like, that's the part that broke my heart. Like, everything else was a performance.
Yeah. So were you okay with that, or were you heartbroken?
No, from a storytelling perspective.
Because you can still be heartbroken and still like what's going on, even if it's not necessarily what.
No, I thought it was handled well. I mean, it was a quick Marvel event. And so that had its own issues. but I think it was a successful event.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a bummer like that Cyclops went out the way he did.
I have to agree. I'm not necessarily a Cyclops fanboy, but I think that Death of X really pumped me up for what IVX became, because Death of X, as much as it was about Cyclops, it was very much about Emma as well, and just kind of the breaking point that brings her to the person that she becomes on IVX. But I think that the event as a whole was handled well. I don't necessarily, the demise of the mutants. It's an ongoing thing, I think.
Well, yeah, there's business reasons why you're not going to see a new X-Men character for a while.
Yeah, which is kind of a bummer. But overall, I think that even Lemire did the best he could with a shit idea. I feel like if anybody else would have been behind it, I would have been offended. When I was heartbroken, I kind of feel the way Wiccan feels about Cyclops is how I felt about Lemire's work with the X-Men titles recently, which is I was heartbroken, but it was incredibly well done. Because can this guy write anything bad? Like, he could write a freaking book about poop and it'd still be interesting.
There is a toilet scene.
I just think that Marvel editorial just. I mean, again, I don't know why he left, and I know Ian probably has some opinions about that. But I just feel what comes through in the writing is, oh, this is good, this is Lemire, but I can't help but get the impression that his hands are tied a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you could tell that he didn't want to be writing those X titles, but he was like, damn it, I'm going to do the best job I can, and he did. I think that his work was great. And what I don't think he can do wrong, even if he tried.
Yeah, I think the Marvel book of his that I think sadly we won't get the time that it needs to really be something amazing. I mean, the seeds are all there for it, but it's his. I don't know. Are you guys reading Thanos at all?
No, I've heard good things though.
Yeah, it's a simple premise. It's basically Thanos is dying, and he's decided he doesn't want to, and it's dealing with father issues. Like, Thanos has a scene where he confronts his father. Thane has been freed and is like on the warpath for Thanos. Like, it's also in a weird way it is dealing with. I feel like he's the only writer that can write. His loss at Marvel is going to be significant because he was the only guy that could write about big ideas on a a Jonathan Hickman level, but really make it personal and real.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
I don't know, his we'll be fine as the readers because he's obviously still going to be writing stuff, but I think Marvel's going to feel his loss.
Oh,
I think another person at Marvel that can do that is Al Ewing, and Al Ewing is being completely tied up by editorial.
Oh yeah,
I mean, just ridiculous.
Well,
so. They're not rewarding those people.
I mean, the fact that he made Contest of Champions, which was a pure just marketing decision, that was a really fun book.
Yeah.
Oh, Marvel. That's how I feel about it. Those are my feelings about Marvel.
But
well. Since we're talking about, I have a question for everybody.
Okay.
So what big two would you want him to write? What big two book would you love?
Oh yeah,
Young Avengers.
To write?
Young Avengers or Teen Titans?
Ian, have you read his Teen Titans book?
Wait, what?
Yeah, he's got Teen Titans Earth 1. It's a self-contained. They're self-contained graphic novels
Sort of
that are
Elseworlds.
outside of. They're Elseworlds. They're outside of continuity.
Oh, those are my favorite.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, hell
I think
yeah.
there's 2 volumes,
Yeah,
maybe?
there's 2 volumes
two
so far.
volumes.
That he wrote?
Yeah.
Yep.
Consistently?
Yep.
Yeah, they're not on like a regular schedule. It's just like they come out whenever he's
Yeah, they're
whenever the
graphic
artist does. Yeah, they're just graphic novels.
Oh,
They're not
okay.
comics.
Gotcha. I'm going to be checking those out.
It's their Earth One book line. That's where Grant Morrison is writing Wonder Woman, and JMS is eventually going to write the next Superman installment. Which who cares? But
ask and you shall receive, I guess.
Yeah.
Like,
well, to be fair though, a Jeff Lemire in continuity Teen Titans would be great. So.
Yeah. I would say, like, harkening back to like where I first discovered him, I feel bad saying this because I'm really liking what DC is doing, but I'd really like him to be on Superman.
That's a good one.
Like him getting to play with some of. I mean, I'd also like to like, oh, he should do Swamp Thing, but that might be a little too close to Animal Man. Like already like territory he's already explored. But if he ever got the desire to do the big 2, like honestly, I'd prefer to see him at DC. I think DC right now is like had a come to Odin moment, and like, and they've really tried to be more creator driven in a way that they really weren't during the New 52. Like,
you mean they actually learned from mistakes?
Yeah. I mean the fact that they got Greg Rucka to come back, like after he swore when he walked off of Detective Comics that he was never working for a company that Dan Didio was involved in ever again. I mean, Superman is just the first one that pops into my mind that like it goes back to like, because Clark's also in a different place. Like, I'd like to see, because in this version of Clark, he doesn't have the Kents aren't around anymore. I'd like to see it explored, like how Superman or how Clark like rediscovers Smallville, but with his parents being gone. Like, how does Smallville change for him? Like I'd like to like see Clark go home and like I'm gonna fix up the farm. I haven't been here in a while. Like,
I mean, the editorial direction of Superman right now is being a father and having a family.
Which
Yeah.
I'm loving.
Right for Lemire to take over.
Yeah.
Yeah. That being said, like only when Tomasi's damn good and ready to give it up, because I think he's
exactly.
the best in continuity Superman story ever.
And just to add to what Wiccan started, I kind of, well, you asked the question, of course, but I wouldn't mind seeing him write Batman right now, just because from coming right off from the Button event, there are some things that happen between Batman and I don't want to. I don't want to spoil.
Yes.
I don't want to spoil, but there's something that a certain character from another world tells him, like you don't have to be Batman. You could just be a father, like to your son, and that's something that I've always wanted explored more. It's like, what if Batman decides to take a break and focus on the family aspect of things, because Damian, that fucking kid, is so it's like on his own, and it's heartbreaking at times, and I've always had a complaint about that, and it's just like, what if Batman decided to like focus on family just a tad bit more? And I think like Lemire would do a good job writing that, because it would be a very real Batman, because right now he's kind of dealing with what he was told by this certain character in the Button event, and he had a moment, and I think on part 4 he had a moment, and he I think he's questioning whether being Batman is something that he wants to continue to do.
Yeah.
I definitely, from what I've read, I think that's going to play out in future issues.
Yeah, I mean they've explored that somewhat, like during like 1 year later, like Bruce did just take off um, with Dick and Tim, and they just disappeared for a year. And but dovetailing off that, I'd like to see about Batman Beyond, like because it's got everything. It's got like the quasi future stuff of Descender. It's got grizzled old Bruce Wayne, where he could like have all of his like cynical monologuing, and then but then it's got Terry McGinnis, who's the greatest Batman ever, and like, so yeah, if he can't be on Superman, I want him on Batman Beyond. Sorry, Dan Jurgens. I feel like I'm coming for your books, but I'm not. I love Dan Jurgens. Like,
oh, don't let Mike the Mutant hear you say that.
I love Dan Jurgens.
His last name too, Jurgens.
My pick would be for Lemire to write Aquaman, but to make it an Aqua family book.
Oh,
with Garth and with Aqualad and with Aquaman and Mira, and even bring in, now they're bringing in Dolphin. Just like make it like
Dolphin,
a big family / adopted family book written by Lemire. That's everything I want out of life. He's my favorite superhero. So if I could just have Lemire write him and bring the whole Aqua family back together, that'd be amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, I want Jeff Lemire to bring back the Fantastic Four.
Oh,
that's what I want.
Booyah.
Yeah, but
it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen.
That would be amazing.
It's gonna be Brian Michael Bendis. I'm calling it now.
No.
Wow, the hate for Bendis has been real lately.
Which personally, I do not understand.
I love how they're doing this like really slow tease of a new Runaways book. Like building up the anticipation and dropping the images. Everybody knows who Bendis. They're of course just going to put Bendis on there. Like, who else do they have?
Oh, they're going to do a new Runaways book?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense.
They've been teasing it.
And the TV show's coming out sometime, right?
Yeah.
As long as the team is led by if she comes back, if it's led by Valeria like it was in the Secret Origin. Oh no, she didn't lead it, but she was like in the title. If Valeria Richards is in charge of the team, that'd be great.
I would read all of these books.
So, do you guys have any other questions? We're at the hour and a half mark now. I don't know if you guys want to start wrapping up, but do you guys have anything else you want to talk about fairly quickly, or any questions you want to ask each other?
Well, I'll just shout out and say, if people haven't read Roughneck, it is very good, and it's really cool to see Jeff Lemire experiment with color. So I'll throw that out there.
That's very good.
Wiccan, you? Any last remarks, questions, topics?
Get out there, and I mean, I just go back to my original picks of like Descender and Superboy, and definitely Superboy. That you can read that in one graphic novel. It's great.
And Clark. I call you Clark Kent. That's what you're. That's what you're under on my phone.
I mean, Underwater Welder is amazing. I mean, that's the gift that I literally like keep multiple copies in my house to give to random gifts to people, because it's great if you've never read comics before. It's great if you've never read Lemire before. Yeah. You can sit down and read it in like 30 to 40 minutes, and it's an incredibly powerful book. I also just really love Moon Knight because it hits me with some, hits me in my personal life, and it's just, it could have so easily been done in a cheesy or tone deaf or completely unapproachable way, but he deals with the character like a punching superhero with a mental illness better than anybody ever could have, and the art's just incredible. So, I mean, the first two that I think of are those two, even though I think Black Hammer's the best thing he's done. I definitely think Black Hammer is more appreciated the more comics you've read before you read it.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I would agree with that.
I agree.
And so I'm going to go back to Underwater Welder and Moon Knight, and of course Essex County is just a classic. I mean, definitely check that one out. It's phenomenal as well.
And there's a callback to Essex County in Superboy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Something we didn't really talk about that I want to mention before we go is I enjoy his Valiant work too. Like I haven't read much, but it's mostly been his work, and I really like the Valiant miniseries and the Bloodshot stuff of his I've read.
Yeah, I quite like that too, especially the Bloodshot Reborn annual, which just blew me away. But his series on Bloodshot's really good. Again, like a sort of grizzled, man who is dealing with grief
and his past. Yeah, a lot of characters dealing with their past.
Yeah, and then he goes straight up like Mad Maxy, Old Man Logan-y, and like the third or fourth arc of Bloodshot. It's pretty cool.
And Blood Squirt. I love Blood Squirt.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
What the hell is a blood squirt?
It's basically like his own Batmite. Like
what?
It's like literally like an Animaniacs version of Bloodshot. It's just like cracking wise throughout the whole book. He's great.
What?
I don't know if you want to Google Blood Squirt though. You might get some weird results.
Oh God. And God. I guess I'll just have to say that my picks are Plutona and Black Hammer. Those are two of my favorite. I mean, aside from, of course, Underwater Welder. Those two, it really left me with something. I appreciated them in ways that I just appreciate Lemire's work in a way that it's rare for me. I feel like he's something special in the industry, and I hope we never lose him. I feel like Marvel made a huge mistake by allowing him to walk away, and not kind of trying to do everything in their power to keep him. I think that we're definitely going to notice his absence in Marvel, but I'm happy that he's out of there and going to be working on hopefully more indie stuff that will make us cry and our hearts break.
Yes.
Just what I need in my life, to cry more.
Be more heartbroken.
Yeah, it will just for the guy who, like, I love a lot of the sausage making of comic books, and so, like, oh, quiet you.
Hashtag sausage making of comics.
Just like, all the behind the scenes politics and whatnot. Like, so it'll be an interesting story when the dust is finally settled of what finally happened at Marvel, and it could be something as simple as like he was just contracted for that amount of time and his exclusivity contract was up, and he just decided not to resign. It could be something as boring as that.
Yeah, but that's not as fun to talk about.
I like my conspiracy theories better. Just kidding.
He's like, you want an Old Man Logan #1? I'm out. Look.
Him and Alonzo got in a fist fight.
So
Jonathan Hickman kidnapped him and has secretly been writing as him.
So if you guys don't have anything else, I'll start closing shop. Anything else? No?
Well, I would say if people are listening to this, enjoying this, thank you for listening.
Yeah.
I do want to give a shout out to the people who participated on the chat, and I do understand that a lot of the people that were listening don't have a Twitch account, which is completely understandable. I saw you participating in the Discord chat. I do want to give a shout out to Eronin, Lenny Monster, Hulk Cookwin, Jay Spacey 1067, and Big Rob, our dear Big Rob. And a little bit of Elenite there, and that's about it. So I know that we're planning a third episode, and it's going to focus on King. Is that right?
Yep.
That sounds great. Yeah, let's do it.
So yeah, so stay tuned for more. I will release a date once we know on the Discord, but I believe that the King episode is pretty solid if you're interested in that. So make sure to check us out on comicblackbook.com. A lot of the people in the Discord community are contributors there. You can follow Brendan Clarkson, me, and Wiccan Beyond, and Josh Wright using the handles that you see on the screen. All you have to do is add that little username to the end of the twitter.com/ and it should take you right to our profile. So make sure to follow us there. Also check out the affiliate section on comicblackbook.com for Brendan Clarkson's awesome political blog. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Well, first of all, thank you for that shout out. It's so kind of you. I recently started a web online magazine for publishing articles about politics. It's very new, so we're looking for writers. It's called sojournreview.com. And if you're interested in writing about politics or reading about politics, please visit it. And we're going to be launching a podcast of our own very, very shortly.
Awesome.
So, yeah. And we're going to be also launching a Patreon page. It's going to be kind of like a new strategy for the website moving forward starting next month. So that's pretty exciting.
Sounds great. So thank you guys for tuning in. And make sure to check us out for our King episode, I believe, which will probably happen in June. We're in June now, right? Yeah, June.
We're almost in June.
We're almost in June. So say bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.